Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video, and welcome back to the Web Application Penetration Testing series. In this video, we're going to be looking at Cross-Site Request Forgery, or CSRF. Now, this is an extremely important topic and a big one that I cover it correctly. So for the purpose of this video, I've set up a very unique environment that, at least in my opinion, will demonstrate how to utilize or how to perform this attack. Alright, now I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the environment that I have. Now, of course, you can see I have a few files open here. Don't worry about them right now. Just remember that we'll be using them later on, and I'll be using them really well to explain what's going on here. So you can see as my target, or as my vulnerable system, I'm going to be using, or my vulnerable web application, I should say, I'm going to be using the OWASP Juice Shop. Now, no one actually recommended this to me, but I remember that I performed this during a CTF challenge that I went to earlier, I think late last year. I'm not too sure exactly when, but the whole process was involved with exploiting this web application. Alright, and in my opinion, this really outlined or really showed off how to perform all of these various web application attacks. In this case, we're going to be focusing on cross-site request forgery. Alright, so I have the Juice Shop running. It's based on Node.js and it's running on my local host. Let me just show you that right now. There we are. So I haven't logged in or done anything yet, and that's because I'm going to do that with you. So I've set it up. It's running on my local host. If you want me to make a video now to set the OWASP Juice Shop up, I will make it, because this is a fantastic way of explaining how everything works and understanding how these attacks work. And in regards to that, the OWASP Juice Shop is a complete CTF challenge that you can run or take place in, or you can go through it, and if you find the flag, well done. So remember, if you want me to make a video of that, just let me know in the comment section down below. So let's get started with this really simple but sometimes complicated topic. Alright, so cross-site request forgery, CSRF. Now, from the name, you can already tell that it's split into two sections. You have your cross-site and your request forgery. So from that, we can get a basic example of what's going on here. We have cross-site scripting, and we are going to be forging requests, or we are going to be manipulating requests. Interesting. So we are kind of understanding what's going on here. Now, the technical explanation for what CSRF is it is an attack that forces an end user to execute unwanted actions on a web application in which they are currently authenticated. Alright, so let me put that really simply. Alright, it's an attack that will force an end user to execute unwanted actions on a web application. These actions can be anything, but in this case, we're going to be looking at changing the password, and they have to be currently authenticated to that web application, which means they have to be logged in to that web application for this to work, because if they're logged out, then you get the idea, it really doesn't help or it doesn't work. Alright, so we use cross-site scripting in this case to perform the request forgery and to get either desired or undesired results. In our case, we're going to be looking at how to change the password of any user that's logged into this web application. And how will we be doing that? Well, we are going to be using CSRF, but the first thing you need to understand is how an HTML form works. All right, and this is very important because first of all, a client will request a page from a server. All right, the server will then respond and give the client the HTML form. The client will then send back the form with the data back to the server. The server will then authenticate and authorize the user, and then will perform the requested action. And based on the request and the response, we are able to forge or to change the request and get a desired response if you're looking at it from an attacker's perspective. All right, so the way CSRF works, is the attacker will manipulate the victim into submitting the attacker's form data to the victim's web server. Essentially, essentially performing these requests. In our case, as I've mentioned, it will allow us to change the password of any user on this web application. In this case, the OWASP Juice Shop web application. All right. So now you might be asking, well, if I'm a bug bounty hunter, or I'm practicing to become a bug bounty hunter, how do I go about finding this vulnerability? Well, that's a very good question, and that is the question you should be asking yourself when performing any penetration test. Now, coming back to my environment, I'm running BurpSuite, the community edition. You'll just need the community edition for this one. We're not performing any advanced techniques here because we're essentially just changing, we're just going to be changing the requests to get our desired responses. But once we move on to the advanced stuff, I'll then be using OWASP Zap for our attacks. All right. So keeping things really simple, the way to look for these vulnerabilities is to target the login pages, which we have right here. We can then create the account and log in, and then finally we will be creating our own script to perform the cross-site scripting, and that will allow us to submit the data, or if we send the URL to another user of this web application who is currently authenticated, it will allow us to make them change their password, and then we can log into their account. All right. So this vulnerability is very common on sites with accounts, sites that have emails, passwords, and as you probably would have guessed, there are a lot of sites that utilize this functionality. But remember, most of the sites out there will be protected from this vulnerability. So it's up to you to find these vulnerabilities. All right. So as I've mentioned, we'll be using OWASP Juice Shop as our target. And the reason is because it will explain what I want to explain really well. All right. And we'll be using the BurpSuite Community Edition. Now, as you can see, I'm currently running the Burp proxy. I'm not intercepting any traffic. If I open up BurpSuite, I'm not intercepting any traffic. If I go to the proxy and intercept, I'm not intercepting anything. So it's currently just, I'm just going through the Burp proxy, and all traffic and data is being logged through the Burp proxy. So when it comes down to this little data that I've saved here, I've already created an account. The reason I've done that is to save time, because I don't want to explain everything about it. So I've created a user with the email of test@test.com and a password of password. So really simple. Again, there's nothing really complicated here. And if you're wondering what exactly does this mean, well, this is a security question with the answer. So the question was, what's my favorite pet? And I wrote in dog. So hopefully that doesn't scare you into thinking that I've gone completely crazy. And then in here, we have the script that we'll be using or we'll be utilizing to perform the CSRF on the site. I'll get to this in a second. We don't need that right now. So if I want to log in, I know that the email is test@test.com and the password is password. All right. So let me do that right now. We need to authenticate. So let me log in like so, and I'm going to hit test@test.com. All right. And I'm going to write the password, which is password, and I'm going to hit login. All right. And I don't want to save the password. And there you are. So I've logged in now. Now, as I said, this vulnerability works really well when you're talking about changing passwords, because as you can probably guess, an attacker would be looking to exploit this functionality. Because imagine if we were able to send a GET request to our target with the URL, encoded URL. Of course, we can also use link shorteners if we wanted to do that. And essentially, if they authenticated it, it will allow us to make them change their password simply by clicking on the link, changing their password to whatever we specify. All right. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to look at how the GET requests are being sent, and we can do that using Burp. So we are just going to change our password. So our current password is password, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my password into password. Password 123, and I'm going to repeat it. So password 123, and I'm going to hit change. All right. So the password was successfully changed. Okay. Now let's look at how this was processed in Burp, or how the request was sent in Burp. So I'm going to go into Burp proxy and HTTP history, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. And as you can see, we have the GET request right over here. Okay. So the GET request is very interesting. You can see we have the GET request, and it's targeting the following URL, and these are the parameters. So Change password, the current password is password, new password 123, and we've repeated it. Alright, so now let us perform the forgery here. So I'm going to send this into the repeater. Alright, so I'm going to click on repeater, and in here we can manipulate the requests and see what responses we get. Alright, in case you did not know about that, but again, let's start off really simply. So we are going to be working with the raw request. We don't want to work with individual parameters, although you could change it, but we are going to be manipulating the request entirely so that it performs what we want to do. Alright, so what we can do first is we can test. So let's change, what if we were to change the current password to something like, let's see, test. Let's change it to test, and then we hit go. You can see that the response we get is a 401 error, which means we are unauthorized to make that, and it will give you the message right here. The current password is not correct. Alright, that's good. That is good from a web application perspective, which means that this web application is performing validation, and it's not going to allow us to, to just go in and start manipulating any requests and making changes. So from a security perspective, the web application is doing really well. Alright. What if I was to change the new password? Let me change this back to password, to the current password, which is what we set. And I change the new password to password pass123. All right. And I hit go. Again, we get another error. Again, the 401 unauthorized error telling us that the new and repeated password do not match. So yes, the current password is correct. And the only thing that we're getting an error is the new password and the repeated password are not correct. So interesting. What if we want to change the password into password 123 and we can repeat that again? So we want to confirm this. So password 123. Actually, hold on. So I'm going to say password 123, and now let's see what this tells us. This should verify it, but let's see if this works. So you can see, yes, that does work. And we know that this works because that's what we did. That was the original request. But what if we do not know the current password of the user? Remember, we're going to be targeting other users of this web application. So what if we get rid of, and this is this is the way penetration testers go about it. What if we get rid of stuff? So what if we get rid of the current password? All right. And now essentially the get is targeting change password with the question mark here, essentially requesting, and we're only entering the fields or parameters new and repeat. What if we do that and we change them to password 123, pass 123 and pass 123. Let me hit go. You can see, yes, it does work. We get the 200 response, which means everything was processed correctly, and we were able to get a password that looks to be hashed, and we got the email that we used. So yes, we do know that it is working. All right. So we know that this worked, but we need to confirm that this has worked. So we can do this by going back into our web application. And we can log out and we can try and log in again. So log in with our new password. So we're going to say test@test.com, and our new password was pass123. Remember, we changed it earlier, but again, I was demonstrating that if we are to send this to our target, we need to make sure that it will work without any pre-required information like their current password. So we've manipulated the request there. So let's hit login, and voila, you can see it does work. Excellent. All right. So this is a fantastic example of how CSRF can be utilized, or how it can be, how you can find vulnerabilities for it. All right. So this can allow us to change or update anyone's password, anyone's account's password that are currently logged into this web application. All right. So now what do we need to do? Well, we can log in. As we've already seen, we can log in, and once we've logged in, we can test to see if cross-site scripting does work, and then of course utilizing it throughout the web application is very important. So we can run a simple cross-site script attack to see if it will work on the search bar right here. So I'm going to type in script and a simple one, so alert, just to test whether it works. And in the alert we can say hello, just something stupid, hello world, and I can't even type. Man, come on, world, and we have typed in the alert, and we can finally close the script here. script like so, and let's hit search. And voila, we can see that indeed cross-site scripting works, which means we can insert our GET request inside a script and use cross-site scripting to perform the CSRF. And now you can see them conjoining together. Cross-site scripting with request forgery. Okay, so we now need to create our custom script that will allow us to utilize the attack. And we will be using XML and HTTP. Now, you might have seen this script right over here. Let me just minimize this and open up LeafPad. You might have seen this script that I created. Now, you can find many of these CSRF scripts online that utilize different languages. In my case, I find the one that works the best is the one that works with XML and HTTP and contains the GET request in here. Okay. Now, you can see that the GET request requires the URL in which we submit the parameters without the current password. So we need to go back into burp. And if I was to go back into proxy, HTTP, sorry about that, HTTP, we look to change the password there. So if we go back into, the repeater, and if we look at this now, we can see that the URL is right over here. So that's the GET request. So if we copy this, the local host obviously, and we are not using any current password field. So if we can do that really simply, you can see how this can be utilized really well. So what we need to do now is understand how the URL will be formatted. Now, of course, the web application is going to encode it, and I'll get to that in a second. So we need to copy this URL right here. So I'm just going to copy the URL, and we can edit our script. So HTTPS, and we paste it inside the URL. You can copy this script if you want to. Let's take a look at whether this script is formatted correctly. So get HTTP. No, that's not the way we want it. Let me get rid of the predetermined HTTP there. So HTTP localhost, it's hosted on my localhost with the port 3000 Node.js standard. And we want to change the password. The new password is pass123 and repeat is pass123. You can change that to whatever you want if you want to, play around with the script. But in my case, I don't want to do any of that. So this is the script. So what we can do is we can copy this now, and we can run this in the search bar. And that should, in theory and in practice, give us our first CSRF attack on the site. So I'm going to paste this in here, and let's see whether it does this. So I'm going to hit search, and you can see you successfully solved a challenge. Error handling, provoke an error that is not very gracefully handled. Again, this is a fantastic web application, vulnerable web application that is awesome for practicing your web application penetration testing skills. Now, I talked about the URL that you should send to your target, and that is the URL that will essentially make them change their password without them knowing, given that they are logged in to the web application or they have an account. It will not work if they've not logged in. All right. So that's very important to understand. And many people just, forget about this. Now, again, if you could have done this, I can log out again, and I can try and log in now. And I can type in, for example, test. I just want to show you something very interesting here, test. And I can change the password. We already changed it to password123. Now, before I do that, I can just inspect the element here, and I'm going to hit login, and I just want you to check something out. All right. Now, let me just expand this a little bit here. If we were to look at the network, this will essentially show us all the GET requests. So if I was to hit login, you can see that if we are to look at the GET request here, the login GET request, you can go ahead and look at the exact format in which it was sent. You can look at the cookie. It should give you the authentication token. I'm not too sure. It should give you the authentication token, but that's something for another day. I don't want to complicate you guys. You can look at the cookie if you want to, and you have all the responses right here. So there we are. There's the authentication token, and you can see something very interesting in regards to the token. All right. So let me show you this right now. All right, so as I was saying, you can see. All right, so as I was saying, you can see that if we look at the parameters, the password will be displayed there, and it will be updated to the one that we selected or specified in the script. All right, so remember, if you want to customize the cross-site scripting attack, you can do it through your script, And where is LeafPad here? So there we are. So you can change the password. As you see, we just got rid of the current password parameter, which is a vulnerability on the site, but you can change the password to whatever you want. And now you might be asking, as I've mentioned, what link do you send to the target? And that is very, very simple. If I was to run the script again, and I change the password to maybe something else like password 124 or 345, sorry, 45. Let me just add that to the password. And I run the script on an authenticated user, which is me. So let me copy that. And it should change my account password. And you can see once I log out and try logging in, it will have changed it successfully. So let me just run it in here. So I'm going to paste the new one in here and I'm going to search, and there we are. So now it's changed my password, and if I log out and I try and log in with the old password, which is password 123, you can see, whoops, sorry, I think I typed that in wrongly, 123, like so. If I log in, there we are. You can see that we entered the new password and it did work. Fantastic. So we were successfully able to execute the script. And again, if I just run the script again, this is the URL that you will send to your target. All right. So if I just copy it and I inspect it in my LeafPad here, I really love LeafPad. I don't know whether you guys love it too. If I just inspect it, you can see that this indeed is a URL. And if the web application was being hosted on a server outside my local area network, it would give you the website name, the port if it is port specific, and the URL here, which as you can see is encoded. So what I would recommend, is that you copy this link here and you use a link shortener like Bitfly or any of the other Google shorteners, and you send that to your target. And once they click on the link, and if they already logged in to this specific web application, it will update their password, and you can essentially, you have their password now because you've updated it, and all you need is their email, which I'm pretty sure you must be knowing if you're performing this attack, or you could just be gathering passwords of users of which you can send this link to and are authenticated with the web application. Alright, so that was a very advanced topic that I wanted to explain, and hopefully I was able to do it using Juice Shop. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video, guys. If you found value in this video, please leave a like down below. If you have any suggestions, questions, or anything else that you would like to ask me, leave them in the comment section on my social networks or on the website. If you want to support the channel, you can do that by clicking on our Patreon. The link should be up any second now. Any help is really appreciated, but you really don't have to if you don't want to. That being said, that's going to be it for this video, guys, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.